If I said that you will one day forget that memory because of these types of diseases, it's that moment of realization you can do something about it, slow down that process and be able to build your protective factors.
Your Samoan is impeccable. Your body, what it means to be Tama'ita'i Samoa, where that comes from.
Sili mulimaya muamai. Although we're going to go into the future and learn all these new advancements, technology, have input from those who came before us. They hold experiences, knowledge in order to continue moving forward.
Everyone, and welcome back to Dear Suga. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm so glad you're here. And if you've been with us for a while, thank you for being part of this growing community. Every listen, every share, every message really helps us keep these stories going and reach more people who might need just a real girl talk. Now, to introduce our guest for today, I remember vividly the day Tulima walked into my classroom. She was late to my freshman English class, which is just a proof that she's not that person. And me, I was trying to be the strict teacher because I do not want to have a hard year. So I was ready to make like an example of her. But instead, I was pleasantly surprised. She was so poised, so confident, and she was just well-spoken. Only for me to find out she was like in the wrong class. Still, that moment just stuck with me. You know, that first impression would matter, and I knew even then and there was something special about her. So today, it's just a full circle moment to have her here on Dear Suga, Tulimalefoi M Vaofanua. Welcome to Dear Suga. I'm so happy you're here.
Grateful to be here. So happy to, yes, definitely a full circle moment. I do remember that first day coming into your class, feeling so nervous, and then just to know that I was extra early for your next period.
She was super early for class, and that's how she always shows up. Let's start from who is Tulima today, and how has that confident 14-year-old evolved into the woman you've become?
Tulima today looks, I want to say 50% the Tulima before, from that still trying to be the extra early. I want to say confidence level is still there depending on the topic. But yeah, she's definitely grown. I feel like at that time, she was still very naive and putting up a front and being confident. But now I speak from a place of experience now. I speak from a place of having gained some knowledge, both culturally, but also academically. True, I go back to what we said at the beginning, truly full circle moment, having been a little 14-year-old in a classroom at Samoa High School and now a meeting at a professional level. So it's been quite a change.
So I know that you currently are a researcher for the American Samoan Cancer Coalition. The truth is, I always thought it was just like the small group that are to support people who might be going through cancer, but it's more than that. Could you provide some additional insights into what you do there?
I serve as the research coordinator for the American Samoan Community Cancer Coalition. And right now, the coalition is divided up into like two divisions. One, the philanthropic side, where we provide stipends to cancer victims, cancer survivors, to help them along with treatment, anything else expenses-wise, whether that be also mental health support, therapy councils, whatever they need the money for. That philanthropic side is solely donation funded. So all the fundraisers that we do throughout the year with the golf tournament, shout out to Ace Hardware. They're always doing the Ace Angels fundraiser for us at the end of the year, which is coming up. So please do your Christmas shopping at Ace Hardware. Just want to put a plug in there because all of that money from the community goes back to these cancer victims and cancer survivors. That's the main side of why the coalition was founded back in 2004, to create a safe space for people who got diagnosed with cancer and provide that financial support. I want to say in 2015-16, the coalition created another side where it's more research-based, and that is solely grant-funded through the National Institute of Health and the National Institute of Aging. And so my role as a research coordinator is to help run the day-to-day basis on all the research projects that we have funded out of the coalition. And we've done everything from advocacy, awareness. We've also more recently done some biomarker testing on colorectal cancer. We've done health literacy projects and research. Currently, my role is to help assist in running our laboratory services. So the Cancer Coalition got funded for a R1 grant, which is a multi-year grant catered towards or focusing on Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And so we see that there's, apart from cancer and ADRD, that's a short version of Alzheimer's disease-related dementias, they share the very similar risk factors. And so we've also seen there's an increase of numbers of those in our community just from stories that are showing cognitive impairment, right? So lewa wa makanga ba ika ko kanga ka o ika wa ba kule nga valval matua, or they're starting to forget things at an earlier age. And so the coalition was grateful enough to be funded through the National Institute of Aging to conduct this monumental research done for our community. A lot of ADRD research has been done on other communities like African Americans, Caucasians, Asian Americans, but it's never been done for the Samoan population. With a lot of types of diseases now, although there's treatment available, there's also different treatments that need to be fine-tuned to a certain population. We're very honored to be one of the first to be able to do that, and a nonprofit or community-funded organization to be running that type of research now for our population. So through our Pui Pui Malu Manatu, or Protecting Memories One Mind at a Time program, we are able to service 50 and older of Samoan ancestry. We do a bunch of cognitive assessments here. We also take a blood sample. And more recently, we are also offering an MRI scan for those participants that come through the study, all to find out what the prevalence is of ADRD in our population. So again, we've heard about it, talked over and over. We know our grandparents and our parents are slowly starting to show signs, but we don't know why, how it's happening, whether it's something in our genetic code as Samoans. So that's why it's really important to do research for our community and by our own people, because I know there's also that concept of the language barrier, being able to provide these services in Samoan for our Samoan people. That's just a little gist of what I do right now for the coalition. There's a whole team of us behind this work, and those who help funnel the funds in from the government. We're very, very grateful to have been doing this since 22. We're going in our year 4 now for the research project.
In reference to like fine tuning services, what are some of those services that might be different for someone that is Pacific Islander? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Thank you for that. For right now, because it is such novel research, we're also wondering ourselves if we're asking the right questions. Does this or does this not work for our population? So I think a prime example for one of the research that we're doing now is a lot of the battery tests that people currently help diagnose ADRD in other populations. We're already finding out that they don't really align with some of the way of life that we have here. So a lot of the diet-based assessments are based on a different type of population. Like the standard diet testing assessment used right now is based on a Mediterranean diet. And obviously that diet is not really followed as much in the Pacific Island nations or even as Samoans. That's also where we have to weigh whether or not is this really a fair measure of the diet for our population, or should we translate it in a way where it relates to the diet that we currently have, which again goes back to different populations, different needs. We know a lot of the screening or treatment services that are available now, they all have to be studied within those specific populations for us to know whether or not they work or they don't work. So I can't say for sure right now what is available, but I can speak on what some of the trends we've seen right now in the participants that have come in so far. Hopefully by the end of year 5, which should be at the end of 2027, we'll have some more solid evidence to support what works and what doesn't work, so that we can now create a treatment plan that works for our population. Or hopefully not so much of a treatment plan, but more preventative care, because we definitely don't want to get to those terminal and end-stage diseases. We want to be able to catch them as early as possible.
What I'm hearing is that you're in the research phase. And is this going to be publicly made? What is the plan behind the study?
It will eventually be re-released publicly. The goal for all of these is, again, to give back to the community. The community provides so much data and so much information for us to some of these programs that we're hoping to set up, or even work with our local hospital, our local health services to be able to implement this into their everyday work that they do. the coalition prides itself on is being able to conduct a community workshop. So the symposium presents the research back to the community of what we found, what percentages of people were showing signs of ADRD, what percentage of people were showing high risk factors or modifiable risk factors, what percentage of people, because we are taking a blood sample, are showing in their biomarkers high in this, low in this. And so those numbers help fuel some of the treatment plans, intervention programs that are needed to be able to catch either the disease early enough where we can prevent it or early enough where we can find treatment for it. Currently, there is no cure for ADRD for all populations across the board, globally, internationally. And so we're hoping to take it a step further and maybe do some more behavioral interventions where we can help the population in that way build more of a resilience, build those resilience factors against these type of diseases.
Maybe I didn't catch it earlier, but why specifically ADRD?
Now, it was, I think the coalition was by way of networking. We were able to use some of, because one of the earlier studies that were done was on health literacy and its relation to colorectal cancer specifically, and whether is there a relationship between low health literacy and getting screened for CRC or colorectal cancer. And we didn't really have enough of a sample size at the time to say whether it was, but whether there was an effect. But we know in other studies done in other populations, there is, because of how low our health literacy rate is in American Samoa, that it does negatively impact our likelihood for our people to go and get screened for different types of cancer, for different types of diseases. And so it was through a networking opportunity between our administration at the time and some of the folks that we met up during some of the meetings. We put together an application and found out just how much of the closeness between the risk factors for ADRD and those of cancer. When it was sent out, we got word back and we got funded for it. And so that's why we're doing this research. But we're definitely in the works of doing some more studies on cancer specifically. Like in the past, I mentioned we've done work on colorectal cancer and health literacy. We're hoping to get into more maternal cancer. There's been an increase in prevalence of uterine and breast cancer in the last few years for our population. And so we're hoping to work with the Cancer Center, which have been a really good partner of ours years. And so we're hoping to partner with them and do another type of research on prevalence or modifiable risk factors and things like that.
So, about maternal cancer, for sure, breast cancer, uterine cancer, you mentioned it's become more prevalent, or is it just because there's more people screening for the cancer, or in terms of diet or something that has actually increased those?
I can't speak on what the source of it all, but I can infer because those screening services are available on island. I think that's the reason why we're seeing more of those numbers. Had there been more screening opportunities for other type of cancers, I'm hoping we don't see, but I want to say that we'll be able to see more of those numbers. Yeah, because we have opportunities for mammograms, we have opportunities for people to go get screened for cervical cancers and things like that. And we have professionals who are able to do that. I believe that is contributing to the numbers of the reasons why we are seeing those diagnosed more so in the last, I want to say, 5 years.
And how often do you do these campaigns for screening?
A lot of the campaigns are done through the Department of Health, breast and cervical cancer screening programs, but we do assist in helping promote services because we don't currently offer those screening services here at the coalition. It's through a partnership with DOH and the hospital to push the narrative out. Early screening saves lives, early detection saves lives. Just like how your car needs regular maintenance and service, your body needs it too. So we try to promote prevention from the get-go. We don't want people to get to the end stage of cancer where there aren't cures for them. There's barely any treatment, and even the treatments available are not kind on your budget or are not kind on your body. And so we want, again, to push to go get your checkups done, go get your follow-ups done. Even though you feel healthy, you want to make sure that your body is operating the way it should be.
A lot of the cancers can be genetic, and you could be as healthy as you can be. You could everything right, but it's just because genetically you might be more likely susceptible to getting that specific cancer. I'm just curious, someone gets screened at LPJ. Does that information eventually come to you, or do people just need to come seek out the help of the American Samoa Cancer Coalition?
Now, the only way we are able to get some of the numbers in screening wise or firsthand when we've received it is through our financial stipend or assistance program, and that's through Tulima. A lot of the numbers that we do get through the coalition are through those who know about the financial assistance, because one of the requirements of getting funded as a cancer survivor or part of the recipients for the financial assistance program is you show proof of diagnosis. And so that's some of the ways that we're able to get the numbers in. But I do know it's upon request. The Cancer Coalition currently contributes to the Pacific Journal for Cancer Network that helps publish a lot of those numbers of prevalent cancer screenings and things like that happen. And so I believe a lot of the numbers that we do push out to that journal is also through the cancer registry at the hospital along with the local Department of Health.
I'm curious, so why specifically did you want to be part of the American Samoa Cancer Coalition?
I've gotten it asked before because people are asking, why are you not working for the government? My family is the reason why. And my family, I want to say fate. Cancer has affected like every generation of my family, even until now, from my great grandma to my grandma, to my mom, my great aunt, my great grandfather, even to my aunts and uncles, even my cousins now. All of them have fought the battle against cancer, are even continuing to fight cancer right now. And so I already knew a part of me was called to be able to do this work. I just didn't know where I fit into the work. Coming back with my degree in biochemistry, specifically the Cancer Coalition, I wasn't planning to stay when I actually came, but by some miracle, or more like trying to make it work, my parents were saying maybe stay a year and try to see how it is. Maybe you'll be able to find work locally. And a newspaper ad where they were promoting their symposium after one of their studies, I saw it. I just went as a listener just to see what kind of work that they were doing. I knew I wanted to get into cancer in general, whether that be advocacy, research, and things like that. I just didn't know where. And so I showed up that day, had a conversation with their research coordinator and their director at the time, which is still now Dr. Vaofanua. And one conversation led to another about 2 months later with them. Started off as a survey assistant, just helping them build surveys online, public health surveys. And that at that time, they were doing a lot with like tobacco risk factors and see how that played into lung cancer. And so knowing how now that was my foot into the door and doing all the research that they have funneled in since then, just on tobacco, on health literacy, on colorectal cancer, and now we're here. Like I want to say 6 or 7 years later, we're still doing this work. I think that just goes to show if you really put your mind to it and if you get a group of like-minded people in a room from that community that are really, really willing to do the grunt work, you can get it done. And I think I'm honored to be able to bring back some of the knowledge I've gained overseas and being able to gift it to the community however I could. It's truly been such a fulfilling opportunity to be here locally, serve my parents, serve my family, but also do such meaningful work for our community. We might not see it firsthand now, and that's one thing I remind some of the folks that come through the program is we don't see some of that work now, but hopefully 5 or 10 years from now, this will go into treatment, intervention programs, preventative measures that'll prolong life as Samoans long after we are gone.
I wanted to insert in there too. I mean, the fact that you could have gotten your job anywhere else. Now, if for those of you who don't know, Lima is actually Victorian for her class, and also at college, actually were like the main speaker for your commencement. Right?
Yes, for our graduation mass, yes, which was the day before graduation.
So another thing about you is a big component of who you are is your faith. Ever since I've known you, you've been a devout Catholic, Christian, definitely woman of faith. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more because not only do you do King Settings a Coalition, you also do one for your church, which is Vaofanua Maria. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about what that is and what you're trying to accomplish with that?
Vaofanua Maria group, or the Children of Mary Association. It's actually a chapter of the Catholic Church. And so what the organization is about, I joined when I 13 or 14, 15, around that age. The organization is about trying to get young women to follow the virtues of Mary. And I know it's a misconception saying that the children of Mary are supposed to be holy, are supposed to be these God-sent individuals that do everything biblical and carry themselves in a certain way where it's completely clean of any type of sin. So I want to say the whole point of the organization that we try to push out to young girls is just about sisterhood and building that connection of a Christ-like or a Mother Mary-like life in her way of obedience, humility, practicing all these virtues and values in her life and carrying that in your everyday life. And so those are just some of the things I try to share with the girls. I myself am not perfect, but I do my best to follow those virtues and carrying it within my workspace, within my personal life, between my relationships and me and my family and my friends, helping lead that life in faith, having grounded on those virtues or beatitudes of Mother Mary, personally have helped build my life and blessed me in the opportunities that I've received and being able to hold. And so our role as the older girls of the organization is to try to share that same sentiment with the younger girls in hopes that they see it's not just an organization. Yes, it's important to pray, but practice in prayer is also just as important.
Also, the thing that I really love and admire about you, you definitely really embody the essence of being a Tama'ita'i Sam. Your Samoan is impeccable. We can one thing saying it, but I really think you live it out. Where did that come from?
I believe it really comes from my family again. It goes back to how I was raised, but also how I apply how I was raised. I think that second part is also just as important because your parents can also continue to feed you with a lot of the information, but it's also how you receive it and then how you put it out into the world. Both maternally and paternally, lineages for anybody goes back centuries, and it goes back to commitment. I don't want to use the word pressure, but it's a lot of expectation for sure. And so I want to say I pay homage to my late grandfather and my paternal grandparents and Vaofanua, my parents. One thing that I think I was really grateful that me and my siblings got growing up is we practiced bilingualism in the household. And so there were certain evenings or days where my parents prevented us. That whole evening at the dinner table, at the time, it was a little bit harder for us to be able to speak Samoan in the full sentence all by ourselves. But it is those little practices and those little habits, I think, really help to build up the way that we speak and the way that we try to carry ourselves daily. I know a lot of people use it banters, or a lot of people use it kind of jokingly, but I hold true to the saying "Fisili mulimaya muamai." Those of us who came later always have to ask for permission or ask for input from those who came before us, because there's a reason why they came before us. They came with experiences, they came with knowledge that although we're going to go into the future and learn all these new advancements, this new technology, for me personally, there's always that low-hanging fruit at the back of my head just saying that, no, you need to hold on to this in order for you to be able to go forward and continue moving forward. I'm so grateful to have that type of upbringing because it translated well into working with our population, because we are working with 50 or then there's a certain language that we have to speak in order for us to approach them. And so one thing we also try to help implement here at the coalition is to continue practicing. And for anyone who fears that they might not be as fluent or not, it's, again, practice in prayer is just as important. So I thank my parents, my whole family for making sure that we carry the values of being Samoan. And one of the biggest things as Samoan that I hold true to is our essence as caretakers. So not only caretakers of the land that we are here, but especially our parents and our families.
One of the things that I always stick to Tulima. So it's va with one another. It's just also the va with you in the different spaces. It's always having respect in every aspect of our lives, not just in terms of our human relationships, our relationships with the world, with the earth itself. So thank you for sharing that. So you've gone through various different things, but what do you do for yourself?
I don't like this question. Just kidding. No, I, outside of my roles as a research coordinator or even as the eldest daughter, I like reading and having conversations, which is something I regretted before my grandfather passed, was having conversations with my relatives, especially my father and my paternal grandparents who are still with us. Having conversations just about their upbringing. Just, I think having a conversation at lunchtime with somebody, getting to know them, that brings me joy. I think that's who I see myself as, and that's who other people see myself as, is just being able to give my time to those and then getting that time reciprocated to me in return.
That's a good. Taking it back to cancer awareness, right? You're able to go out and speak with the wiser group of our community. What are some memorable moments that you've encountered so far?
Yeah, no, for sure. One of my favorite parts of when we go out and do outreaches for the community is just seeing a light bulb go off. Like, you see their faces and just the way they lit up, and knowing that these types of opportunities are available for them and then having them share stories. Because one thing we do when we go out into the community is ask them, what is the fondest memory that you never want to forget? That's one of like an icebreaker that we do. And it's through those memories that they share with us that we kind of loop in the conversation and say, well, what if I said that you would one day forget that memory because of these types of diseases? And it's that moment of realization for them, because it's been part of the narrative that ADRD is just part of aging, which is true. At a certain time, you will be forgetful, but it's knowing that you can do something about it and slow down that process and be able to still build your brain protective factors as long as you possibly can. So it's just having those conversations with them, getting to know them on a deeper level, sharing some of the knowledge that they have on what they used to do to be able to continue having their brain active, and then applying that to some of the work that we do now and giving out those practices to our community.
Considering we're talking about ARD, because our tradition is oral tradition, and how we actually carry down every story. So that's a lot of brain power right there. So it's interesting with the thing that you're doing right now.
It amazes me just how much they retain. And I think one thing that we're maybe at the end of this research we're finding out is maybe it's not even genetics. Maybe it really is just environmental. Maybe it's just the diet introduced. We're not as being physically active anymore. Those are just some of the things that I personally am suspecting is the reason why we're seeing more and more people the age for ADRD getting younger in other populations. And hopefully we'll find that out in a few years from now in our population.
We were just talking about the cancer research stating the best diet is the Mediterranean diet, which doesn't really correlate with how we live in the Pacific. Which makes it interesting because if you look back at the food that we naturally eat, it was actually a really good diet. Turkey tail, lamb flap, those are all introduced to us. I'm interested to learn about how that true Samoan food is healthy.
Right. I personally believe that our true Samoan diet is what helps sustain our people up until this day. That's why we still have our elderly who are 90-plus-year-olds who are still strong, who are still active and just holding a good conversation. And we're seeing a lot of the younger ones who came with a later diet showing more comorbidities and other types of NTDs or non-communicable diseases. And so, again, maybe that's another study, if it hasn't been done yet, that could be done to try to figure out where the source of all of this is, whether if it's truly environmental, and so much so environmental that it's gotten into our genetic code, or if not, is it just us not being more vulnerable? I mean, climate is another thing that has been discussed, affecting a lot of the foods that we're able to eat, we're able to grow in a lot of places in the world, but especially here.
You have done a lot, not just for Cancer Coalition, but you've also attended various different conferences for Pacific Island leaders. I know you were part of the Pacific Island Arts Festival, all these cool things representing American Samoa. So what are some of the takeaway that you had with other leaders from the Pacific Islands?
One of my biggest takeaways being in Pacifica space is this concept of weaving the old with the new. The main conversation that was happening at that time is culture, tradition, going back to our roots. There's a reason why things were working up to a certain point. Where was the turning point where we ended up being so dependent on Western knowledge and not holding true to what we've had and sustained ourselves over the years. And so I think that was one definitely main theme that was shared by all the different Pacific leaders, is going back to who we are, redefining ourselves in this generation with the Western knowledge and bringing back that traditional knowledge and being able to implement that into our lives, making it become part of our everyday conversations, everyday duties and responsibilities.
I was thinking about trying to connect the Cancer Coalition in Pacific Islands, and I might be jumping around, but I'm curious, with those connections that you made, are other Pacific Islands doing similar researches around cancer? You can get together with them. How are we sharing that knowledge among each other, or are we just keeping it within our own community?
That is a good point. There's a cancer network that comes out, I want to say every year, that the Cancer Coalition currently contributes data-wise, right? Seeing what is the increasing cancer screenings done in this certain population, what other interventions have worked that haven't worked for this specific population. What's happening here in Samoa is not different from what's happening in Fiji, not different from what's happening in Tonga. The effects of climate, the effects of diet, we see it all happening. One way that the knowledge is shared is, I know through our director, there's a meeting that's held, I want to say once a year, but also online forums that are constantly happening and sharing that knowledge. On the laboratory side, I've been able to connect with some Pacific Island leaders. More, I think one of the main things we've noticed, because we're working with blood samples and being able to get analysis done overseas because the equipment is not found here locally. One of the biggest problems, I knew it inherently that it was happening, but I didn't think that everybody else was also going through the exact same thing, is logistics. Just trying to figure out how to ship a sample, where it should go, what are the stops, how much money it costs to be able to get one thing to one place, getting the data shared securely and safely from bigger institutions down to our level of community. So just trying to navigate that space, it was just interesting that when I told the story of something happening here in Samoa and not getting enough dry ice, because we make dry ice now here locally, to a certain place, people in Papua New Guinea were sharing, actually, yeah, we just tried sending our samples to Australia and it didn't make it because of some shipment issues. And so those, I want to say, minute problems that some people don't even consider. It was humorous to hear that all of us were going through the same problem, and all of us, again, are sharing what we found that worked and what didn't work, and how there's so much red tape to safeguarding some of these to complete this form, to pay this fee. There's a bunch of extra hurdles you have to get through just to be able to get the information out, but also receive the information here. So being able to network with them and sharing their solutions, and also us being able to give them some of our input and what works and what doesn't work, has been monumental in being able to get some of our processes off the ground.
It's awesome. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So
it's kind of nice. Especially in the islands, there's limited funding in many places, and you just got to find ways to make it work. So I definitely appreciate all the work that you're doing.
I definitely don't do it alone. There's a whole team of us that are able to do this on a daily basis. Just glad that I'm able to contribute however I can.
You networking with other people in the Pacific. I'm curious, there's a lot of nonprofits out here in the U.S. as well, that focus on Pacific Island communities. Do a lot of the communities out here partner with the American Samoa Cancer Coalition?
We do. So the coalition does do a lot of community work, and it's been able to do all this work because of all the partners that we've had and grown over the years. And so the Cancer Coalition, through a care program, it's a collaborative approach in research and excellence for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And that care program is out of the University of California, San Francisco. And so we work a lot with the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities out in California. And it's a registry for research. If you are 18 and over and you're of Asian American or Pacific Islander descent, and you want to be able to contribute to research in some way or form, you can add your name to the registry.
So for anyone that's out there who's interested in learning more about American Samoa Cancer Coalition, do you mind if you can share some upcoming events before the end of the year or 2026 that we should be aware of?
And November is celebrated nationally as Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And so they're hosting a concert, and we're going to share some of the insights that we've gotten so far in the research that we've gathered. And so we're hoping to see you there at some of the events that they're having. There's an opportunity to register for the study and learn more about the coalition and what we do. We have some folks set up tables to share more about the research, but also register anyone interested at the Moso Oe Siba competition happening November 8th at the Veterans Memorial Stadium.
I love that they brought back the soy festivals, but a few more reflective questions. So I think of my mom and her cancer, even though she didn't go that route. What are some of the things that we could help support someone that's going through it?
I want to say in any situation, whether it is cancer or any type of other like terminal disease, it's just taking it one day at a time. I have noticed that it's hard. It's also a hard conversation to have and navigate, because depending on the type of cancer, depending on what stage of the cancer it's at, you don't know what comes about it, how quickly it affects their body, or how quickly it takes a toll on who they are, and it changes the way they operate or they move. And so it's just a matter of my personal take on it is just being able to make them comfortable as best as you can, because you can't take the radiation for them. You can't be there to take the chemotherapy if any of this were needed. But it's just being transparent with them from the beginning, but also making them comfortable in their journey from beginning to end, whether that be they're at the screening level, prevention level, all the way down to diagnosis, and then eventually, if it gets down to it, the treatment.
I think that's beautiful. And so, what is your hope? What does hope mean for you?
Hope for me is really having a community built around compassion for others. Not that we don't already do, but having, especially in terms of cancer, having it be more of an everyday conversation to take care of ourselves. I think it's affected so many of my relatives so far that I feel that number needs to come down. And I think it starts with just having everybody come together and not be so against the concept of getting yourself healthier, staying healthy. And my hope is that we can help each other get to a point where we take care of ourselves physically, mentally, but also spiritually. And it comes down to being able to share information, learn new things, and guide each other on what the path looks like for everybody. I also want to take this opportunity to thank you for having me on and sharing what knowledge I have learned, or some of the insights I have in the work that I do. Again, we do this and with the community. And so we encourage you to reach out if you feel that this is something that you want to get into. More than willing to be able to connect and do this work for everyone here, especially our Samoan population. Thank you for having this platform for all of us to share and just have that girl talk, like you mentioned, learning about how our lives have been impacted by others, but also how we can propel forward in the future and share that information as well.
I appreciate you taking the time, even though it is Dear Suga's beginnings. I'm grateful for it and having come be part of it. Something that really sense is awareness truly saves lives. I think sometimes we don't talk enough about how important screening is, whether it's like scheduling the mammogram or doing regular checkups, just being aware of our bodies. It's so easy to put it off when life gets busy, but those few minutes can make all the difference.
Yes, it really does make a difference.
Thank you for sharing your heart with us today. You're so powerful reminder of grace and walking through life with purpose. To everyone listening, I hope today's conversation reminds you that healing and hope grow stronger when we show up for one another, whether it's through a small act of kindness, checking in on someone, or simply just choosing compassion, like Nima said. Those things make a big difference. And dear Sula, that's what this space is all about. It's building a community rooted in connection, So if something from today's episode touched your heart, please share it with someone. Until next time, dear Suga, I hope you all take care of yourselves and each other, and remember to share Alafan Mana.